Chris is usually written off as the lovable, somewhat dim-witted middle child who spends most of his time keeping to himself. But if you've been paying close attention over the years, you know that underneath that signature baseball cap is a character capable of delivering some of the absolute wildest and straight-up interesting moments in the entire series.
Young Chris Griffin. So what are your hobbies, Chris?
Masturbating.
We should form a club.
Today, we are taking a deep dive into the most interesting Chris Griffin moments in Family Guy. Let's start the show. We are kicking things off with Season 14, Episode 19, an episode that explores what happens when the ultimate high school outcast suddenly gets handed the crown. Have you ever wondered how Chris would handle ultimate popularity? Well, it turns out it goes straight to his head, leading to a massive ego trip that comes crashing down in one of the most heartbreakingly embarrassing moments of his life. The story kicks off during a particularly lonely lunch at school, where Chris and Neil Goldman hear that the nominations for Homecoming King and Queen are due. Hoping it will make people want to hang out with them, Neil nominates Chris for the title.
You know what? I'll do it. Maybe I'll surprise everyone.
Chris excitedly runs home to tell the family and starts brainstorming his speech, initially wanting to open with a line that supposedly rhymes Chris Griffin with Homecoming King.
Well, the voting is tomorrow, so I've got to write my speech. Luckily, Chris Griffin rhymes with Homecoming King, so I've got my opening line.
Lois is understandably worried that Chris is just setting himself up for heartbreak. The next day, Chris decides to ditch the rhyme and opens his speech with a classic Webster's dictionary definition instead. To everyone's absolute shock, Chris actually wins the election and is crowned Homecoming King.
Holy crap!
I don't believe it. Chris won!
Chris celebrates his massive victory the next morning with the breakfast of kings, pork chops, and French onion soup. However, Meg isn't buying it, warning the family that Chris was probably only elected so the popular kids could prank him at the dance.
That's my brother. They're not gonna mess with him. He's the man. He's got real Griffin beef in those trousers.
Meg, how can you be so sure?
Worried for his safety, Brian and Stewie go undercover at the high school to investigate. After Brian completely fumbles an attempt to sneak into the girls' bathroom, the duo watches a local news broadcast and discovers the horrible truth. The election wasn't a malicious prank, but it was done purely out of pity because his classmates view him as special.
I just see him walking around with his hands down his pants all day, and he's just so fat and weird, so we feel bad.
Essentially clocking him as the weird kid who always has his hand down his pants. Meanwhile, completely unaware of the pity vote, Chris goes on an absolute power trip. He begins acting like literal royalty, demanding that people pay their dues to the king. He barges into Stewie's room to claim 3 items as tribute, hilariously grabbing a book on healthy eating just to insult his little brother.
Well, he obviously doesn't know it's just a pity vote. In fact, this whole Homecoming King thing seems to have just gone straight to his head.
I know, he's acting like an arrogant jerk.
Things escalate to a gross new level when Chris decides he's too royal for a normal bathroom and starts using a waffle iron as his personal chamber pot. Brian tries to talk him down and eventually spills the truth about the pity vote, but Chris's ego is so inflated that he simply accuses Brian of being jealous.
Oh, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Tonight, when they put that crown on my head, it's gonna be the greatest night of my life.
The illusion finally breaks on the night of the homecoming dance. After addressing his loyal subjects, the homecoming queen is revealed to be a girl who recently passed away in a car crash. The reality of the situation hits Chris like a ton of bricks. The entire school just voted for him to make themselves feel better. While he awkwardly kicks over the deceased girl's memorial out of frustration, Chris actually takes the public humiliation incredibly well. In a surprising moment of maturity, he accepts the reality of the situation and declares that he doesn't need anyone's pity, proving that sometimes he really can learn a valuable lesson.
You know what? I am. I may not be king, but I learned I don't need anyone's pity.
That's the spirit, Chris.
Moving on to Season 21, Episode 20, we get a look at what happens when Chris tries to get a little more involved at school, leading to one of the most highly questionable extracurricular activities in the show's history. Have you ever wondered how far a school would go to save its budget? Well, Chris finds out the hard way when he discovers his principal's very secret, very adult underground side hustle. The story kicks off when Chris comes home from school with his new yearbook.
Oh, and we also got our yearbooks.
Oh, let me see. I love seeing what my handsome boy's been up to all year.
Lois flips through the pages and is incredibly disappointed to find that Chris isn't pictured in any of the school clubs, urging him to finally get out there and get involved in some extracurricular activities.
All right, I gotta get Mom off my back. There's gotta be an extracurricular for me somewhere. Hey, can I join your club?
Chris decides to take her advice and tries his hand at a few normal groups, like lacrosse and public speaking, but nothing really seems to fit his unique vibe. However, while wandering the halls after hours, Chris stumbles onto a film set that looks suspiciously familiar. In fact, it looks exactly like his homeroom.
Is this My school?
Attention, naughty students. Is now in session.
Oh my god, Principal Shepard's making at school!
It turns out Principal Shepard has been using the school grounds after hours to shoot highly questionable, adult-themed videos. Now, Chris happens to be something of a Rainman when it comes to this specific genre of entertainment. He has a photographic memory for everything he's seen online, meaning he instantly pieces together what the principal is doing and realizes he could easily compile enough evidence to take him down.
'Cause I know you've been making porn in the school.
You can't prove that.
I heard your voice on one of the videos.
But instead of turning him in, Principal Shepard realizes he has an absolute expert on his hands and decides to bring Chris directly onto the production team. Chris begins acting as a consultant and director, making sure to remove any harmful images from the shots to protect the innocence of any kids who might accidentally watch.
Our videos have been quite a success.
I took the liberty of buying us a little something to celebrate.
That's right, the 1992 Toyota Cressida.
It actually goes incredibly well for a while, until Lois eventually stumbles onto the horrible truth. She wanders right onto the set, wearing Crocs and holding a bag of Arby's, which is arguably grosser than anything else happening in that room.
I don't believe this. Chris, you lied to me. And for something so disgusting.
Mom, I can explain.
Lois and the other concerned parents are absolutely furious and get ready to tear Principal Shepard apart for his underground film ring.
First of all, I want you to know I'm filming this. Second of all, I'm gonna get really angry really fast for no reason.
But in a shocking moment of maturity, Chris steps right in between them to save his principal's skin. He delivers a passionate speech pointing out that the city slashes the school's budget every single year, and Shepard is just doing whatever it takes to give the students the education they deserve. It turns out, the underground videos are pulling in a ton of cash. Sure, it's crumpled, sticky, and deeply unsanitary money, but it is exactly the funding the school desperately needs to stay afloat. It spells the end of Chris's brief directorial career, but it definitely proves he has a very specific hidden calling.
Red-headed packs a very naughty lunchbox.
Dude, that's my mom.
It's usually someone's mom, Chris.
Next up is Season 14, Episode 13, where we see exactly what happens when you give a hormonal teenager unrestricted access to a smartphone and absolutely terrible dating advice. Have you ever wondered how far Chris would go to clear his public image? Well, a massive texting mistake leads him to make an incredibly radical medical decision that completely changes his entire personality. The story kicks off when Peter becomes obsessed with phone apps and ends up ruining his device by taking it into the shower.
My phone's broken.
I'm not surprised. It's probably because of all those apps you've been downloading.
No, I took it in the shower because I didn't know you could pause a game.
Naturally, he passes the busted, waterlogged phone down to Chris. Chris is absolutely thrilled to finally have his very first cell phone, but things immediately take a dark turn the next day at school. Chris is crushing hard on a girl named Marcy Miller, but doesn't have the guts to talk to her. He asks Mort Goldman for advice, and Mort confidently tells him that nobody actually talks to girls anymore. If you want to get a girl's attention, you just text her a highly inappropriate, unsolicited picture of your business. Taking this horrible advice to heart, Chris snaps the photo right there in the hallway and hits send. This massive mistake backfires spectacularly. The very next scene has Peter and Lois sitting in the principal's office alongside Joe Swanson.
It appears Chris sent an inappropriate photo of himself to one of his classmates.
That's right. He texted a picture of his peeing.
Oh my God.
Because Chris is technically a minor distributing an illegal image, Joe has no choice but to officially place Chris on the local offender registry.
I don't know what to say, but the laws just haven't caught up to how cool kids are now. I'm sorry, but this makes Chris a sex offender.
Plastering his face in crime all over the local news. To clear his name, the law requires Chris to complete a rehabilitation course taught by, of all people, Glenn Quagmire.
Do I really have to be here?
Well, the law does give you a choice. This or chemical castration.
What's that?
You take a ton of pills that completely wipe out all sexuality.
While Chris actually manages to graduate from the class, he quickly realizes that his reputation is permanently destroyed and his classmates still treat him like a complete creep.
Hi, Mr. Herbert.
Oh my God! Children, run! It's that pervert! Everybody into my safety basement! Oh!
Desperate to prove he isn't a pervert, Chris decides to take the secondary, much more extreme legal option. He medically alters himself, taking a heavy regimen of pills designed to completely eliminate his urges. Chris returns home with a fresh haircut, a strangely soothing voice, and a brand new, sophisticated personality.
Now nobody will have any reason to be afraid of me or think I'm a pervert, and everybody can just treat me like normal again.
With his mind permanently out of the gutter, Chris's focus skyrockets. He transforms into an elite, high-achieving student winning a Kaplan Prize in biology, acing his Spanish tests, and even joining the debate team. His newfound, refined lifestyle actually works, and he manages to win back the respect of his peers. It even impresses Marcy Miller, the girl he originally texted.
I had no idea you were such an amazing tutor. And I really like your pendant.
Thanks. But why are you being so nice to me?
She approaches Chris to apologize for getting him into so much trouble and places a friendly, forgiving hand on his shoulder. Unfortunately, that single physical touch acts like a spark to a powder keg.
This is not a drill. I repeat, not a drill. Good to be back doing this again, huh, Bill?
The brief contact instantly reverses all of the medical chemicals in his body, completely reigniting his old urges. Chris loses his mind and frantically runs off screaming for someone to bring him nude art books, instantly bringing his sophisticated era to a hilarious and chaotic end. For our final spot on the list, we are looking at Season 12, Episode 15, Secondhand Spoke. Have you ever wondered what happens when Chris finally gets a taste of ultimate high school popularity with the help of his genius baby brother? Well, it turns out he becomes totally corrupted by the power, taking things to a terrifying extreme by literally taking Stewie hostage just to keep his social status intact. The story kicks off when Brian and Stewie drop Chris off at high school.
Hey, thanks for fitting in the ride to school in between your texts.
Totally, Chris, totally. I'm sure it'll all work itself out. And good luck on that thing.
Where he is immediately targeted by a group of 4 bullies who relentlessly insult his weight and his sister. Chris tries his absolute best to clap back, but his comeback skills are embarrassingly weak, awkwardly yelling out, "Oh yeah, well you have a sister as well." Stewie watches the whole sad display from the car and genuinely takes pity on his dense older brother. Back at home, Stewie decides to intervene, interrupting Chris while he is doing something highly questionable, feeding his deceased gerbil inside a fish tank.
This joker still hasn't woken up. Get up, lazy!
Stewie tells Chris that he desperately needs to learn how to stand up for himself. Seeing that Chris lacks any natural quick wit, Stewie offers to become his personal insult coach, teaching him how to use his words to earn some real respect.
Why would you do that for me?
I'm your brother, Chris. We're a team and we've got to look out for each other, like Owl and Costello.
The very next day, Stewie puts his plan into action by literally climbing inside Chris's backpack so he can secretly whisper devastating comebacks directly into his brother's ear. When the bullies approach them in the hallway, Chris fumbles his words from sheer nerves, but Stewie feeds him a hilariously brutal insult about their mom. Chris delivers the line perfectly, completely destroying the bullies and making everyone around them burst into laughter.
Wow, Stewie, we're gonna work perfectly together, like Sherlock Holmes and Watson.
Empowered by Stewie's insult-generating brain, Chris goes on a total verbal justice tour. He steps in to verbally decimate the bullies when they try to pick on Neil Goldman, and his newfound confidence even helps him smoothly score a cute girl's phone number.
Finally, a guy who listens. Here's my number. Call me.
Chris becomes so incredibly popular so fast that during a school assembly, the student body actually nominates him to run for class president.
Chris, they love you. I'm a better coach than God.
Everything is going great until the night before the election, when Stewie announces that his training is complete and Chris is finally ready to strike out on his own.
What are you talking about? I'm running for class president. I need you.
What are you doing?
You're coming to school with me whether you like it or not.
And terrified of losing his newfound popularity and ruining his presidential chances, Chris completely loses his mind and takes a super dark turn. In an act of sheer desperation, Chris actually kidnaps Stewie, locking him inside the backpack and holding him hostage for 5 entire days. Stewie is forced to endure the awful, deeply unsanitary conditions of a teenage boy's backpack and even completely crashes and burns when he attempts a daring escape in the dark while Chris uses the bathroom.
This could be my chance to escape this canvas cage.
You're gonna die in there.
The situation finally comes to a head during the class president election assembly. Stewie absolutely refuses to speak for Chris anymore, prompting Chris to threaten to keep him locked in the bag forever. But Stewie manages to talk some sense into him, reminding Chris that he only stepped in to help him. And in return, Chris treated him like a servant and transformed into the exact kind of monster bully he used to hate. Racked with guilt, Chris snaps out of his popularity-induced psychosis, releases Stewie from his backpack prison, and honorably drops out of the presidential race. In true Family Guy fashion, things end on a strangely high note when Chris learns that he doesn't have to worry about his old bullies anymore, as a couple of them permanently took themselves out of the picture.
I'm sorry, Stewie. Can you forgive me?
Well, I may no longer be on your back, but I'll always be on your side.